Over the past weeks, tensions have sharply escalated around Scarborough Shoal, a coral atoll in the South China Sea claimed by both Philippines, which refers to the feature as Bajo de Masinloc, and China. Although China has maintained de facto control of the feature since 2012, recent incidents show a marked intensification of Beijing's military and Coast Guard presence, matched by Manila's increased willingness to document and publicize maritime and aerial, gray zone, actions by China. In early October, China flew a number of high-end assets in the region. According to reports from defense analyst outlets, the People's Liberation Army Southern Theater Command deployed H-6 bombers armed with YJ-12 anti-ship missiles, Type 054A frigates and J-16 fighter jets in combat readiness patrols around Scarborough Shoal. The stated aim, in Chinese official language, was to reinforce patrols and vigilance, strengthen control and management of relevant areas, and effectively counter unlawful infringements and provocations. At the same time, Manila has reported aggressive maneuvers by Chinese Coast Guard vessels vis-a-vis Philippine-affiliated ships and aircraft. One recent incident saw a Philippine government vessel claim it was subject to water cannoning and ramming by Chinese ships while attempting to carry out a mission in the contested area. China, for its part, responded by publicly urging the Philippines to cease violations and provocations, and stop challenging China's sovereignty and maritime rights in the waters around Scarborough. In parallel, the United States formally offered diplomatic and military backing to the Philippines. A U.S. State Department spokesperson condemned China's alleged ramming and use of water cannons against Philippine vessels, and reaffirmed that Article 4 of the 1951 United States-Philippines Mutual Defense Treaty, which covers armed attacks on Philippine armed forces, public vessels or aircraft, extends to anywhere in the South China Sea. This signals a strong U.S. readiness to link its treaty commitments with Philippine operations even in these contested waters. From Manila's vantage point, the developments are troubling for several reasons. First, China's announced plan in September to designate a nature reserve, covering some 3,500 hectares including Scarborough Shoal, is regarded by the Philippines as a pretext for militarization and institutionalizing Chinese control of a feature that lies, according to Manila, inside its exclusive economic zone, EEZ. Second, the aggressive posture by Chinese naval and Coast Guard forces against Philippine vessels, including resupply missions for Filipino fishers, is seen as coercive interference with Filipino livelihoods and sovereign access. In response, the Philippine government has adopted what analysts call a transparency initiative. Among other measures, it has invited foreign media to ride along Philippine Coast Guard and Fisheries Agency vessels to document Chinese activity, and it has publicized video footage of alleged Chinese maneuvers. The aim is to build international pressure on Beijing and raise regional awareness of what Manila describes as coercive behavior in the South China Sea. From a regional security standpoint, several dynamics stand out. By deploying advanced military assets and signaling readiness to use force to support maritime claims, China is seeking to raise the operational stakes and galvanize control of a key feature in a strategic waterway. For the Philippines, the bridging of maritime law enforcement, Coast Guard, Fisheries Agency, with defense diplomacy, via its treaty with the U.S., and through regional gatherings, shows a shift in posture from passive restraint to more active deterrence and documentation. At the same time, the U.S. reinforcement of its treaty obligations to the Philippines constitutes a stronger signal to Beijing that maritime disputes in the South China Sea are increasingly treated as alliance-related and not merely bilateral. Nevertheless, significant risks remain. The combination of provocative intercepts, close aerial maneuvers, increasingly high-end weapons deployed by China, and the involvement of treaty allies raises the possibility of miscalculation. Should a blow-up incident occur, such as collision, weapon discharge, aircraft downing, it could rapidly escalate beyond the current harassment and post-ooling phase to a broader confrontation. The Philippines' emphasis that the future must not become militarized reflects its anxiety that control of Scarborough by China could effectively foreclose Philippine use of the surrounding waters for fishing, resupply and patrols. Finally, the economic and diplomatic dimensions are also relevant. The South China Sea remains a vital shipping route, contested fishing ground and potentially rich in seabed resources. Disruption to free navigation, increased militarization and escalation of maritime incidents could alarm third-party powers. The U.S. support for the Philippines signals that the dispute is not simply a bilateral maritime squabble but part of a broader U.S.-China strategic competition in the Indo-Pacific. China's framing of its actions at Scarborough as lawful enforcement of its sovereignty claims underscores the divergence in legal and normative frameworks. Manila cites the 2016 South China Sea arbitration, which invalidated China's Sweipang 9-line claims while Beijing rejects that ruling. In sum, the confrontation is multifaceted: aerial patrols and bomber deployments by China, maritime harassment and resupply interdiction by Coast Guard vessels, Philippine efforts at documentation and alliance backing, and U.S. strategic signaling. The stakes extend beyond the immediate shoal to broader regional stability, alliance dynamics, resource access and respect for international maritime law. At present the situation remains below the threshold of full-scale conflict, but the chance of inadvertent escalation is elevated.